In this hour, I will try to highlight some issues that we approach during the course. Actually, we spend more or less the whole first day of lecturing on these topics, but I will try to be very synthetic and highlight the most relevant ones. So, digital and data-driven transformation is the title of my presentation that aims to focus the organizational aspects of digital transformation. So we're not talking about the macroeconomic and social changes, but exactly what digital transformation means in the corporate, in the way we work together, and also in the way the meaning we give to work and to coordination and collaboration. And to do this, I start from my definition of digital transformation. That is a process, is dynamic process that is changing all the time, evolving, and of alignment of digital technology, skills, so what we know, what we are able to do, organization, rules, business models to create new value for stakeholders and maintain the sustainability of the organization in an ever-changing business environment. This definition has all the things you're going to talk about in this 40 minutes or something, and it focuses on different aspects. The most important probably is the last one, the sustainability of your corporation. It's not only environmental sustainability, it's also economic sustainability, it's also social sustainability. So it's a very faceted term that very often is mistaken just with environmental issues. Environmental issues are fundamental because they are part of the environment, also economic environment, in which a corporation grows. But to guarantee this sustainability, we have to satisfy some needs, basically to solve problems to some bodies, some stakeholders that are willing to give us the resources we need to maintain and thrive with our organization. Resources are not only financial resources that are coming from basically the customers and the founders, but also labor resources, also institutional resources that are given us by unions, by workers, by the municipalities in which we have our premises. So it's a much more complex aspect. What is digital transformation then? Digital transformation is this ability to maintain alignment between the organization and the environment that can be split into three more focused elements, three more focused abilities, capabilities. Capability of understanding the environment, situational analysis, understanding what is going on, what kind of problems we have to solve or we can solve, and from this understanding, being able to do the second kind of activity, second skill, that is ability to design the organization, to design the rules of coordination, design the roles of the people in order to exploit the opportunities given us by the environment, observing the environment. Finally, the capability of implementation. Designing is not enough. Designing is relatively easy. Making things happen is much more difficult. So implementation is this, it's transforming an idea that comes out of the analysis of the situation into real facts, real processes, real products, real new business models, people understanding what is the vision, what is the objective, and working together to meet this objective, to reach this vision, the goals that are implied. And so this is the structure of my brief presentation. First, giving a highlight on what is going on under our eyes. And I entitled this situational analysis part, The End of Work, because I want to scare you. And this is the only thing that mass media, that mainstream media talk about when they talk about digital, the danger of losing jobs. That's true. We will see to which extent technologies are changing the way we work and substituting part of our jobs. But what we often don't see and what most media don't talk about is the second part, that is the digital humanism, is the way in which technology is changing the organization or enables changes in the organization, and in the same way creates new opportunities and requires, not only creates, requires new jobs, new skills. These jobs are very different from the ones that are substituted by technology. Nevertheless, they are the opportunities of people, especially youngest people, but as we will see, and my point is that also digital immigrants have plenty of opportunities if they make the effort to unlearn and relearn new things, the skills, and also the meaning we give to work that stems out of the digital transformation. So finally, we will conclude with the implementation, the data-driven organization, the challenges that we have to face, and the things we have to bear in mind if we want to implement these opportunities, these changes in an effective way. So let's start from the scare, from the end of work. So situational analysis, the challenge of technologies and the challenge of business models and operating models that are ahead. And when we talk about work substitution, we immediately think about robots. Robots are the archetype of the machine that substitutes people. And I want to start with one robot that is very popular, also because it's getting more than 50 billions of investment from mostly from outside the industry from which these robots comes. And the robot is this, self-driving car. A very, innocent, I would say, funny car. This is the Google, Waymo is the Google company that focuses on self-driving vehicles. And this is, they call it Panda car. And this is the first car that has been built from scratch without pedals, without steering wheel, just seats and the black button that you can push if you are in danger, okay? So they aim to sell this later this year. Actually, Waymo is already, if you go in Phoenix, Arizona, you can already get a ride on a self-driving car without driver. Since last January, they are allowed to give the service without drivers. So you can really have the thrill of getting a taxi without the driver, the taxi driver. In Phoenix, Arizona, you just download Waymo One app if somebody listening is there, and have a ride. And this simple robot, as we will see in a second, has a very important impact in many, many jobs. First, why do we buy a car today? The answer is obvious, because the alternative, since we have to move, we have to be free to, take it whenever we need it, day, night, Sundays, doesn't matter. To have this level of service, the alternative to the owned car is a taxi, basically. If you're in the metropolitan area, you have also smart mobility solutions that could be okay, but anyway, they don't really give the total service that you have with a car. Taxi gives you the same service, but the cost is absolutely outrageous compared with the cost of the car. The cost of the car is basically a fixed cost with a minor marginal cost for the gas. You invest this money in this asset. This is the second most important investment in a family in Europe, at least, after the house. And then you use it with very little marginal cost. Actually, if you focus how the cost of ownership of a car is split, basically 95% of the time, the car sits there waiting on average, waiting for somebody to drive it. So we have a huge fixed cost for this plant, let's call it a plant. Let's imagine we are a company that is used only at 5% of this potential, of this capacity. So it's a big spoil of resources, waste of resources. It's very inefficient. Nevertheless, this is still less expensive than purchasing the service by a taxi, because you have to pay a worker. So to have the same level of service, you have to pay an amount of money that is higher than investing and waiting to use the car when you need it. What happens if we take away the taxi driver? Well, actually, you can have a company that gives you a service like a taxi without taxi drivers. So they only have to pay the mortgage for the investment, and they can saturate the investment much more than 5%. Let's say 60%. That's very likely. This means that what you pay for a ride with a self-driving vehicle, once they are mainstream, and of course all the development costs that today are still there, and also what I told you about Waymo in Phoenix is still research and development. They are doing the service to learn. They are still teaching the AI that is driving these robots, is teaching to all the possible different cases in which they have to take decisions. So I think 2020 is very, very optimistic. I think that we won't see something like this before 2025, because also all the legal aspects, all the technical aspects, also the moral aspect, the ethical issues that have to be solved with this. Also for the software, the decisions they take in case of extreme situations are not so clear and easygoing. Anyway, we will at the end find a solution, also because this robot is 90% less dangerous than a human-driven car. 90% of every year car accidents are caused by human mistakes, human errors, human drunk people, or just human that do the wrong thing. So 90% means more than 1 million people dead every year. So an absurd number, with a social cost that is huge, and healthcare cost that is huge, that is borne by a technology that is still involving humans in driving. If you get the robots, you slash that by 90%, huge social advantage, huge economic advantage because you pay only the mortgage. So everybody's betting on this robot. That's why they invest more than 50 billions, because they think this is going to disrupt totally personal mobility, urban mobility, maybe also medium range mobility. And guess what? The ones that invest more than 75%, 3/4 of the investments are coming from high-tech companies like Google, Apple, and only 15% is coming from the automotive incumbents. What does this simple robot change in we're talking about labor, about work, in the jobs environment? Well, of course, it's obvious that taxi drivers will somehow disappear. But if we have self-driving vehicles, also policemen disappear. If self-driving vehicles will be a service, will not be anymore a product that is bought by business to consumer, but a product that is bought by large service providers. So it is the servitization of the automotive industry. This means that there will be very little customers still buying a car for their own, probably the wealthy ones that don't want to share it and they have the money to afford their own Mercedes or Porsche or whatever. But most of us, I don't care at all about owning a car. If I had a service like this, for sure I would use it and send it to pick the kids at school and pick my shopping bags at the grocery, whatever, without losing time. So definitely the perspectives are that servitization will go on. Business to consumer will transform into business to business industry. Probably the ones who will run the fleets, like Google, for example, will be bigger than the producers of the cars. So the margins for the automotive industry will shrink. The level of side businesses, all the retail for cars, all the retail maintenance will go away, will be incorporated by the big service providers. And this means a lot of jobs that will have to change, will disappear, and these people will have to find new ways to to make a living. Much earlier than self-driving cars, we will see self-driving trucks on the highways. They are already there. They are already legal since 2015 in Nevada. In the states that are the most open to this kind of innovation, the Senate is discussing whether to allow this kind of self-driving vehicles all over the highways. Actually, they're not totally self-driving. They have a system that is called platooning. So they still have to have a truck driver in the first truck, but then they can have a kind of train, 10, 20 trucks that are robots, self-driving, that follow the first one. Technology is there. It's much easier to drive in the highways than to drive in real normal traffic conditions. It's easier to drive in Phoenix suburbs than in Trieste or in Rome or in any European or Asian historical city that was born before machines, cars were invented. So I think that before we see self-driving vehicles in all the towns, even more than 5 years, but trucks on the highways, they're already there. If you buy a truck today, I mean a big lorry, it comes already with all the technology for platooning. It's just a matter of law, deciding whether or not to allow it. Why they're not allowing it everywhere? Consider that every truck saves $200,000 per year to the company that owns the truck, because they don't have to pay the salaries of 3 or 4 truck drivers. So big price, big benefits for the market, because the price of the goods that are transported will drop. But why? What is refraining governments to accept this technology, at least on the highways, at least on trucks? Since it is already there, it works, is proven by 5 years of experience in Nevada and other states in the United States. Simply, jobs. They calculated that only in the US, 3 million people would lose their job, 1 million truck drivers, and 2 million of side businesses, hotels, restaurants, all the people that lives giving services to the truck drivers. So one single robot is disrupting many industries, servitizing automotive, shrinking margins from one side, increasing margin on the other side, changing the value of real estate. If you spent 50,000 euros for your parking lot behind your house, now in a few years it will lose its value, right? Probably at 100%. And yes, is there a question? No. Okay. Insurance companies, car insurance company is basically 50% of the revenues of P&C, of the damage insurances. They will disappear because these, or almost, they will change radically, because these products will be insured probably by the producer itself. Google is insuring his cars on his own, because they have the data, they know the real risk, they know where it is, they know how to allocate the capital to cover these risks better than an insurance that doesn't have direct access to the data. So many changes. One single robot will disrupt many industries, change business models, change the way of working. And robots are not only on the roads. Robots are this is a small robot sold by a French company, cost around 20,000 euros, and is basically a tool to work to substitute part of the shopping clerks in point of sales. You can get payment, it can show you menus or list of items, and you can interact with this. And it works. It's already deployed in Pizza Hut in some Asian countries. And you can see also in hotels around Europe, also in Italy, very easily. Another one, in Dubai, they are deploying Robocops, and they forecast in 10 years to substitute 25% to Dubai police. It speaks 6 languages, gives directions, and it calls the real police when something really complex to be handled is appearing under its cameras. In the factories, we have robots, yes. Actually, robots have been first entering in the factories, but today also in the factories, robots are changing. Together with the old dumb robots that are machines that can be programmed to do anything, but once they're programmed, they keep on doing the same thing without being able to adjust. We have cobots today, collaborative robots, so workers that work together with robots without cages, robots that are able to recognize pieces, tools, and pick them, do simple things. Take the piece and put it into the box. They substitute another 25, 30% of the unskilled workforce. Unskilled workforce is getting more and more easily substituted by smart machines like this. And they can be programmed by workers. The worker picks this one, this is named Baxter, is the first one. Now all the major robot producers are producing machines like this. It picks it from its end and it learns, you have to pick this and put it there, like a baby, okay? And is able to have the basic common sense to understand, to generalize and recognize a piece if it is up, down, in an area instead of exactly in the same place. Totally different from the old robots we are used to see. Robots are not only changing the way we work in the factories, not just blue collars are under risk. RPA, robot process automation, is the same thing of cobots, only it is software. Software robots that use programs as if they were humans. So they basically can interact with different software, different applications, different systems, and do simple things like Baxter, like a cobot. They are trained by the workforce. They can be trained, the easiest at least, can be trained by the workforce. And they can cut and paste data. They can control if the bank account is exactly the same that we have been inputting in our accounting system. Easy things that substitute, again, unskilled workers in basic tasks. Again, several points, percentage points of white collars are just doing this, and especially in developing countries, they are under risk of being substituted by AI. AI that is now entering into the RPA, so cognitive RPA, is the application of AI to these simple RPA, robotic process automation tools, in order to give them more skills. So being able to read an email, understand if this email, for example, you write an email to info@chrysler.com, okay? This can be anything, a complaint about your car, a request of intervention, a request for an offer, or anything. So the cognitive RPA is able to understand what you're looking for and route your mail to the appropriate office without intervention of humans. So it's just something more than just a standard cut and paste thing from different tables. That was what RPAs were basically doing in the past. Now they're starting to read emails, to respond to people, adding the ability of vocal synthesis. They are able to answer to people, even by phone, and they are able to translate. So they take away jobs also for more skilled people. They are able to help recruiters to analyze profiles of people and to shortlist long application lists, shortlist them for the recruiters. They are able to help doctors to recognize pathologies. Maybe the most powerful one is Watson for oncology. Watson is the IBM name of the AI tools they have. And Watson for oncology is better than a generalist oncologist in diagnosing cancers. It's not as good as the specialist for that cancer. But the name of Watson for oncology in the past was Second Opinion. That to me was much more to the point. It's not working on its own. It's working together with an oncologist. So the generic oncologist with Watson makes much less mistakes than the specialist. So Watson transforms, AI transforms a generic oncologist into a super expert oncologist. When Watson works with the experts, it basically doesn't fail. Zero mistakes. Blackstone Discovery, same thing, not in recognizing cancer, but in recognizing patterns into a legal situation, into a legal trial, and find the precedents. Find which other trials in the history have been dealing with similar situation and giving to the attorneys the highlights on these previous accidents and previous events. Especially in common law system, so the ones who are based a lot on the previous decisions of the courts in making positive law, this is fundamental. And Blackstone Discovery is substituting thousands and thousands of junior attorneys that in the past were used in the attorney companies, in the legal companies, just to do this, to do research in the archives and find the precedents. AI is also working in engineering companies, making the calculation and designing things. So AI also writing novels. AI GPT-3 is in the last week has been in the highlights on all major social medias and among the community of AI developers, because they say that GPT-3 is so good in creating text that is able to write books that is difficult to recognize from a human written book. So even, I mean, journalists, all the people that works by writing will be partially substituted by machines. It's already happening. MSN announced last month that they will replace all the journalists that were working in selecting news to make them appear in the news section with AI. Jill Watson, bye-bye professors. My job is not safe, for sure. It's definitely one of the most impacted by these technologies. So we have cases, Jill Watson is a famous case in which IBM Watson has been used by this professor to do the tutor for students. And most students didn't realize it was a software. It was a tutor, email tutoring in Georgia Tech, large university in Georgia. And many students didn't realize they were talking with AI, and they tried to date Jill for dinner. So it was amazing. And this is just the beginning. I mean, we have the access to this kind of technology, access to, for example, Google TPUs through TensorFlow. It's very easy and very low cost, so everybody can access this. So what is the message of all this discussion? We are lagging behind. The root of our problem is not that we are in a great recession, great stagnation, but rather that we are in the early times of a great restructuring. Our technologies are racing ahead, but our skills and organization are lagging behind. These two guys have been writing probably the most influential book on this topic in the last years. They are two professors of MIT in Boston, and their analysis is very interesting. So I advise you to look for them in Amazon and buy their books. So what is this great restructuring? What we call digital transformation is a new competitive condition characterized by the need for continuous transformation of the business models of our companies, the way we produce value for our shareholders and stakeholders. It's not just a matter of learning how to work in a new way. It's a matter of learning and competing in how to innovate the kind of services and products you give to your stakeholder, to your market. And so this brings us to the second point, that is digital humanism. What is the place left to humans here? Well, this is, don't be scared, but this is a plastic portrait of the level of digitalization of different industries in the United States. It was 4 or 5 years ago, but nevertheless, the interesting of this, it's a McKinsey research. The interesting part of this, here you see all the different industries. So some are very, are iterated, still not digital. Some are leading the digitalization path, ICT, media, professional services. The interesting part here is that they measure the level of digitalization by splitting it into 10 categories. The first two are assets, basically how much companies in the industry invest in purchasing hardware and software. The second is usage, how much this investment in assets is transformed into changes and application of these assets to real processes, the existing processes. And the third is the last three, and is the labor dimension, how much people is getting the competencies from technology. And they discover, with this research, that the biggest impact in productivity doesn't come from investment or from the usage into the existing processes, but comes from this single dimension, digital deepening, they call it. More often is called digital mindset. The level in which people is able to understand technology and understand the opportunities and the way in which technologies could innovate the processes. So not only use the technology by the manual on the existing processes, but seeing, I'm using Teams for working with my team. Why I don't use it also to negotiate with the customer? Why? So extending the use of technology to other aspects and creating new ways of creating value. So the basic approach to innovating also the business models. The most important part is this, to produce the beneficial effects of technology into on the productivity. And guess what? The digital mindset, this skill, is already inside the companies. There is already what these professors call digital workforce. This is an article that appeared in the most important scientific journal on management, the Academy of Management Journal, 4 years ago. They said, hey guys, you have to study this because this is happening. We already have a lot of people with the skills that could improve the level of productivity, the level of innovation of the organization, but we are not using them because organizations are still blocked into the old hierarchic, top-down, standardized, bureaucratic mindset. So digital workforce are the digital skills developed by digital natives and digital immigrants, massively present in the company. Think that since 2016, basically, this group have overtaken, is more numerous than the ones who are out of the digital mindset. So these people is massively present. The workplace organization should be redesigned to ensure effective communication and collaboration. We are only beginning to understand the implications of how people approach work, and work could be redesigned at the moment. What is digital mindset? Sense making on your scenario, ability to see what the technology can do. Identification of sources of information, finding the information that you need to assess an idea if it is feasible. Rapid problem solving using technology, finding turnarounds and solutions to solve the problems in making this vision more realistic. Openness to risk and experimentation, learned by gaming. Gaming is a very important activity that teaches you basic skills that today, resilience, for example, today are very important in companies. When you have to experiment, when you have to fail fast and retry in another way to reach your objective, it's very different from the old mentality in which every failure was a disaster and was you were blamed, you were penalized. Today is totally different. So ability to take risks, to experiment, to fail, to learn from failing, ability to collaborate virtually, and COVID gave us a boost on this because we had to in the last months. Multitasking capability, habit to continuous learning. If you don't know something, you don't only look for the sources of information, but you also look for courses, for training. There is a lot of free stuff over there. If you need to learn Python, if you need to learn structured competencies, you can easily have access to the best in class from Stanford professor, MIT professor that teach you Python, that teach you the hard skills of digitalization, not only, also of accounting, of finance. So these people is able to exploit new tools, workforce on demand platforms, tools that enable dimensional flexibility of organization, ability to access workforce in the market without hiring them, but paying by project, and eventually internalize them if you need to make that project stable in the company, or when you finish the project, they are just working somewhere else. So freelance workers have platforms to access organization. Organizations that are able to use platforms are able to exploit these people that want very often to be free, to be a freelancer. The second set of tools, workforce management tools, are the ones to change the ways we work together in the company. Some examples, Upwork maybe is the biggest workforce on demand platforms. It matches workers with companies, also measuring soft aspects, not only the hard competencies, but also the values of people, the work environment that workers, the freelancer need to look for in order to reach the best possible matching. The workforce management tools instead are the ones that we've been knowing very well in the last months. So Yammer tool, Workplace Lex, Zoom, social communication, but also some more structured tools. Confluence, Asana, Mural is a tool for brainstorming. There are hundreds of these. These are just the most famous. Some are used for human capital management. All these digital tools are changing the way we work, are changing the organization. They have potential, actually. They are not changing anything. It took COVID to let people understand the power of Teams. Teams is there since at least 5 years, 6 years. But who used that? Nobody, only the IT guys, okay? And when you say, okay, we could use Teams, come on, you were laughed at. Now everybody, Teams, yes, why do we have to make this meeting? Let's do it with Teams. We don't have to move the car. This will remain, not as at the extent we have today, we use today, but organizations are going to change fast. So, summarize, digital transformation is not only substitution, transactional technologies that create automation and efficiency by reducing the number of workers, but it's mainly the most important, the human side, social technologies, all the teams, all the ones we have seen, that increase the value of the human capital, that increase the ability to innovate, to create new business model, to create outsourcing, to create open innovation, and increase the performance of the corporation. So this changes the organization from the hierarchy to a more organic form, more flexible, agile form, in which there is not hierarchy, but leadership is a servant leadership, in which teams are not of specialists, but are self-contained teams that are responsible end-to-end of their tasks. They are self-organized. They are people in the team's work, maybe more than one team, with different roles. You can be a team leader in one team and be a subject expert in another team. So a totally different, much more fluid organization. Large organizations are focusing and trying to make this happen. Small organizations are already there. Conclusion, entrepreneurial organization. We have been talking about this so far. Basically, we have been talking about data-driven business. All the value that we have seen from robots, from AI, from all the tools we have seen is coming from the data they produce. This data gives us the power to take decisions that are much better, to highlight, to have insights that we couldn't have before. Data are coming not only like in the past from enterprise information, but smart connected products and the external sources of information like the digital footprints we leave in our social media, especially, can be used to create to create a data lake that can be used with the analytics, with AI basically, not only to describe and diagnose, but also to predict and prescript things that the company could do to improve the relation between business, customer, partner. So this deeper insight are the output we look for from AI. Deeper insight that help us to see things that we cannot see just looking at the raw data. The basic insight are the ones that management has. Okay, we have these numbers in this region. Okay, what can it mean? Analytics today can help us to really be much more focused and much more effective in taking decisions. The essence of the data-driven organization, though, is the management determination to compete on analytics, not only in administrative sense, improving efficiency, not only in the red sense, not only to reduce the number of workers in order to be less expensive in doing the old things, but to invent the new things, to use analytics on an industrial scale by creating new products, new services for greater value based on data. Inventing this is producing. I think Gartner Group estimated that by the end of this year, AI will have canceled 1.8 million jobs only in the US, but it will have created 2.3 million jobs because you need to train these machines. You need, of course, to design these machines. You need to train people to use these machines. You need to help the boards of the companies to make sense of the data, to understand the value in the data, and transform the way they take decisions and they design the strategy given to these machines. So all these problems are opportunities. Problems are opportunities. You have to learn how to solve them. And that's the new jobs. And I'm sure we are not missing problems. So problems to be solved are opportunities that can become a business in the future. Because they are problems. Somebody's willing to pay to solve the problem. And so the 5 challenges of data-driven organization. Leadership, we still need entrepreneurs. Data-driven doesn't mean that the AI gives you the solution. AI gives you hints, second opinion, but you are the physician, you are the owner of the company, you are the CEO, you are the head of your business unit, and you need leadership, you need vision. You need to understand technology to have the right vision. You need to understand what technology can do for your business. And then you have to be able to communicate and to energize the people to follow you. You need talent management, data science, big investments. MIB is very much involved now in developing data science programs for large corporations. Data science is not just statistics. It's not even just IT. It's not just AI. It's the mix of mathematics, AI, technology, ICT, business skills, putting together business mentality with scientific mentality, with IT mentality is very tough. This is, again, another reason why we use teams more than single individuals. Technology, choosing technology, data platform. My personal opinion, given the examples I've seen in the field, is that open source is better than closed solutions. But if you are totally out of this, you need at the beginning probably to leverage some service provider, SAP or SAS, okay, there are many. But at the end of the day, if you really get the maturity, you want to go on your own. Not only for cost, but for flexibility, for speed of experimentation. And these things require continued experimentation. So you have to be low cost because you have to fail without breaking the bank. Decision-making, the 2 most difficult things. Decision-making means starting to put the information where the competence is and where the problem is. Data, digital allows us to do this. You don't need any more hierarchy. You don't need some boss, wherever he is, to take the solutions to think about the solution for somebody that is totally out of his radar. You can put the information in the right place, the competent people in the right place, and give the solution to the customer very easily today. Very difficult to be put in practice because, of course, hierarchy says, oh, what's my role then? Okay, so this is very difficult. And finally, company culture, digital mindset, data mindset means starting a meeting, not asking what we think about this problem, but asking what we know about this problem, starting from objective analysis. We have data, we have to use it. Then accepting that the solution of the problem can come not from the highest paid person in the team, not from the boss. It can come also from the last one that is being hired 2 weeks ago and that has a fresh idea and fresh perspective on the problem and gives you the solution. Another big cultural, wall to break. So this is the problem. We have people at the top of the organization that is aware of the need of the change. We have people in the organization at the bottom with the skills, and when we have the organization that is frozen. To unfreeze this, we need to remember these simple words of Muhammad Yunus, he's a Nobel Prize winner. We are all entrepreneurs. You cannot do this top down. You cannot do this by order, by hierarchy. You have to take responsibility. All human beings are entrepreneurs. When we were in the caves, we were all self-employed, finding our food, feeding ourselves. That's where human history began. As civilization came, we suppressed it. We became labor because they stamped us, you are labor. We forgot that we are all entrepreneurs. And this is important because this means exactly a change of mentality. Going out of the pack. The entrepreneurial approach to work is going out of your comfort zone, going out of the rules, taking the risk of saying, I have this idea, and I'm sure I want to sell it to you. My boss, my corporate, entrepreneurial mindset inside the organization. Actually, inside or outside is becoming less and less relevant, given that the distance between people is the same. The customer, the colleague, the boss, the competitor, they are all at one-click distance. It's not anymore like it was in the past. So we can collaborate, share ideas, and we can see things in new ways and be brave enough to find somebody that is willing to invest resources in this idea. So this is the essence of the entrepreneurship. Seeing an opportunity and trying to catch this opportunity beyond our actual resources, our actual role. So taking this risk, just let you go. One day, you start flying. So give yourself the permission. Excellence is a form of deviance. This is the real result that we are looking for, not a technological problem, a mindset problem. Switching from the short-termism of profit to the long-termism of the purpose of your organization. Profit remains fundamental. I'm not saying it's not relevant. It's not the profit comes if the organization is able to see its mission is perfect. Everybody is aiming in the same direction and is empowering, not controlling, is empowered to do what he or she can to reach that objective. Not through a hierarchy, but through networking, through teams, not from planning top down, but by experimenting the solutions, because we are doing things that nobody did before. So experience is important to understand humans, but it's not everything, especially today in which many tools exist that require understanding, and in the past nobody saw them. Finally, from privacy, from playing the game of information asymmetry, divide et impera, to transparency, sharing information with your team for the sake of the team. Okay, I think that's enough. Just one final close. The literate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And unlearning is the most difficult thing. Okay, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm here.